I'm doing this because I want to like share my story and then help women with it to like be the nana, right? That my nana was for me, and it was so beautiful. And now, so and it's even more beautiful. She empowered her daughter to become an actress because of my story. So her daughter now is living in Berlin, where I'm from.
Okay.
Applied for like a really big acting school, and the daughter was like, yeah, but they say no and I can't do it. And then the mom remembered my story and she told her, no, you can do anything if you believe in yourself, right? So she applied for it and now she got accepted. Story doesn't end there. Her mom, now she's 50, she told me that she is going into the modeling now, that she wants to be an Best Ager model.
The mom.
Yeah, the mom that I just talked, and she's getting coached by my modeling agency. I was like, whoa, this is so many.
All connected.
Yeah, so I asked her for her number. I'm like, I want to like.
It's a great story.
Yeah, I want to connect with you. I want to help you on your way. No. She also told me she wanted to buy my online course, but she couldn't afford it. I'm like, don't worry about money. Let's just talk. I want to help you. I literally see myself in her when I started. And that she's impacting, and I did a little bit of coaching. I was like, look, now you're telling all this your daughter. You need to tell this yourself as well.
Is that right? You can see it in her?
Yeah.
I actually wanted to ask you about that because we were talking at dinner about the social media thing in your Instagram. And if I heard you right, you were saying that you were less interested in continuing on with like the coaching of social media. And I had this thought of, is it the content that doesn't just light your fire? Or is it the type of people who you're helping that doesn't light your fire? Or the industry that you're helping? Because I was thinking of Mishi, and I was like, oh, like if Mishi could get 500,000 followers on Instagram, the opportunity for her to share her knowledge about animals, etc., goes up exponentially. People start paying attention. But I don't know if the expertise that you have can be applied to anybody, or if it's really focused in the fashion.
So I grew because of the fashion and the beauty, and this is, it will be still part of my life. I just don't feel like this is my purpose in life, right? So my purpose is, I actually want to get to know more about your coaching program as well, because like I just have to share this and then I continue. You woke me up, or you said something when we had dinner, and when I talked about Micah, right, that I feel like I'm coaching him now, and you told me you coach the people who pay for it and who want it, right? I was like, I should step more into this coaching business because I love doing this, and I see, like I really feel and see people. So I really want to do that. And with my social media, I actually talked with my creative manager today that I want to change my content totally. I want to go from still maybe have this fashion part because it's still part of me, and then adding more value, adding more this like message, adding more this what I'm doing when I speak here, when we speak, like putting this more like really speaking.
What did they say about that? Do they get enthused when you say that? Do they get nervous?
So she's behind it. Just my following, it's like male and female. So it's the male obviously would prefer the other content, right? Then I'm thinking, okay, I'd rather have like less engagement and less people, but I'm reaching the right people. If that makes sense, right? So I'd rather have like a woman like Gabriella being there crying, thanking me because I changed her life and her daughter's life, John, her daughter's life, not just her life. Even thinking about it makes me, this is my purpose. And this is what I want to share on social media as well.
Well, and sometimes it's a balancing act. I remember Oprah when she was building her empire and her following. You know, when she was in the first decade, I don't know if you remember the show from your time in the US, but there was something on, it was like a Jerry Springer type show. It was like stupidity at its highest level, right? And the networks were all pushing all of the TV hosts to do more of that kind of stuff because it seemed like that got more ratings. And she was saying, I want to go the other direction. And so slowly over time, she started to increase the amount of stuff that she did that was more spiritual, while still serving the other side of people's personalities with, I would say, fashion and other things. And then eventually she found a point where she was like, okay, now I'm happy. Like the equilibrium is more in the realm that I wanted it to be. So I wonder if you'll find something similar where it's never completely going away from, it's just a ratio.
Yeah, I feel like with the video that I posted now today, I gave a message. I'm still finding my way, right? I'm still growing with it. So in a way, social media is fun for me again.
Good.
I mean, like what we're doing now, he's already filming. This is what I want to share. Like I also have questions for you. I want to share this so people literally look at my content and they're like, that touches something. That's something maybe that someone needs to hear.
Well, and again, I think the world is not an either or, it's an and. So someone can have a deep desire to live a purpose-filled life and still appreciate the beauty tip that you give them while they're doing that. It goes back to that art thing that you shared with me. So I don't see it as an either or. I think there's a beautiful and in there.
Thank you. I wish you helped me. You really are like, I'm so grateful that we met. You helped me in so many ways. I don't think you even know, but so many like aha moments you're giving me, literally.
Awesome.
Okay, and can I ask you a question since we talk about aha moments? What was you wrote in your books about, but what was like the biggest and most impactful aha moment for you in your life?
Two things come to mind immediately. One is from a confidence standpoint, because that was something I struggled with a great deal of when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it until I was an adult, but if I'd have known it when I was younger, it would have been completely transformative. And it's the knowledge that every expert, from scientists to models to actors to actresses to athletes, every expert who we hold at this unbelievably high esteem, they all started off knowing nothing about what they became an expert in. I mean, think of how ridiculously empowering that is, because we look at them at the height of their success and don't realize all the learnings that had to happen along the way to get there. And I think if I'd have known that when I was younger, I wouldn't have been nearly as intimidated by the world as I looked at it. Whether it was literally, I distinctly remember being like, I don't know, 12 years old or whatever, you're hanging out with your friends and some kid could do some breakdancing move, and I was like, oh, like I bet I could do that. But I was so scared to even like try it. But to realize like, all those dudes that you see on MTV, like it was a learning process. They all started off not being able to do anything. Yeah. So I would say that would definitely be like at the top of my list. A simple phrase that constantly reminds me that we're always growing, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. And when did you realize it? When was like this moment when you realized, okay, this is like I can do anything? Everyone just started from
I would say that was part of it, but I had a defining moment when I did my travels. We talked about backpacking around the world, and so I operated for most of my life between two fears, a fear of failure and a fear of success, which seems so odd when you think about those two things. It's a rather long story, so I'll keep it kind of brief, but it was tied to an experience that I had when I was a little boy. Yeah. And in that moment, I thought to myself, I will never do something that I don't know how to do well, because the consequences were quite severe. And if you looked at the trajectory of my life, you'd say, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you were a good athlete, like you were a really good student, and I was. Yeah. But I was never great. And it's because for you to go from really good to great, you have to fail. You have to try to do it a different way than you've always been doing it. And I was afraid of that. So from the outside looking in, they'd be like, no, it seems like you're doing pretty good. And I was like, if you only knew what was going on inside my head. And then I was on a train in China. Yeah. I was 32 years old, doing the year of backpacking around the world. And at night on the trains, all the lights go out, and you're just laying there in your little bunk, clickety-clack, right? And I had this memory come back to me as if I was watching a movie on a screen. Yeah. And when I watched it from the standpoint of a 32-year-old man, and I could see that little boy, like literally in an instant, all the fears I had held for 27 years disappeared. So, wow. Yeah. Now, if I don't go travel around the world, if I don't follow my heart and do that, like I don't think I have that moment. So I had to take the step, and then whatever, universe, God, put in your word of choice, says, okay, dude, we got one for you. Yeah. Here's one that's going to really rock your world. Wow. But literally from that time, all my fears went away. Wow. Yeah. So what that inspires me to do is to ask the question is, what are we all holding? Like, what fear is embedded? So, like, I didn't have that memory. I had not even a smidgen of recollection of that memory until that night on the train.
Wow. That was universe. That was literally like some, like,
yeah. Wow. I don't know, but it seems to me this ties into one of the things we've talked about, in that if you don't allow yourself to be bored every once in a while, you're not going to have those moments, because you need that moment of quiet contemplation. And if I'm constantly, and I love podcasts and I love content, but if I'm constantly filling myself with something else, I don't think I'm ever opening up the time to reflect. And it was in that moment of reflection that was life-changing.
Yeah.
I could not be having this conversation. I never would have written my books if I hadn't had that twist.
Who knows if we would ever meet?
We wouldn't have, I guarantee you.
And that would be a shame, because now we're long ever, forever friends.
Exactly. No.
Oh,
So
I see us traveling together too, and somehow. I don't know.
So much fun. Well, I know you want to go to Africa, right?
Yeah.
I'm jonesing to go back. I haven't been there in a few years now, so maybe that'll be on the list.
I'm gonna get ahead like you.
There you go. There you go.
The
Chili crew.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question, and probably people asked you that before. The Y Cafe, is it a real cafe? Have you been there?
The cafe on the edge of the world, yeah. That is a tough question to answer.
Okay.
And
I love tough questions.
I'll tell you why it's a tough question to answer. When I sit in the writing process, and I'll use the second cafe book as an example. I don't have a copy with me, or I would actually read you a line, and it'd be in German. So, well, I can show the cover, but
Is it that one?
Yeah.
Oh, that's my one that you gave me.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So I can't read the German part, but I can tell you the essence of where the moment took place.
Yes, please.
So Casey is talking to Jessica about using her internal guidance system. And Jessica is struggling to understand the concept that within us we have the capacity to understand things at such a deeper level, like to the essence that you can see, that you can know the future before it actually happens. And so Casey is describing this, and Jessica is kind of doubtful, and Casey says, "You used yours today." And she says, "What do you mean?" And she says, "You came into the cafe even though you had no logical reason to come to this place. Everything inside of you logically would have said this isn't your place, but something inside of you said go inside." And I get teary-eyed saying this. And Jessica says to her, "How did you know that?" And Casey says, "Because that's how everyone finds the cafe." And I remember writing that line in the park that I write from, and just like, goosebumps, emotions, like all this flowing through me. And that's because I didn't have that line inside my head. That line came from Casey, right? Who is somewhere else, something I can't even describe. So much of the wisdom that flows through me in the moments, I literally will push back and be like, oh, I gotta remember that one. Like, that's a brilliant piece of wisdom. So where does the cafe reside? I don't say that I can give you a 100% clear answer on that, but it's as real to me as you are.
Yes. For me as well.
Yeah. It's a place I go to for answers that I can't find anywhere else. When I wrote the third book, the one that story is about dealing with aging and struggling with aging, that was my story. For years, I've been struggling with the fact that I was never going to be 28 years old again and backpacking around the world with no responsibilities, right? I was never going to still have a chance to make it as a up-and-coming professional beach volleyball player, right? Like, those parts of my story were now in the rearview window, and no matter what I did, I wasn't going to be able to get them back. And that was painful, and I struggled with that. And it was only in going back to the cafe, in a conversation with Max at the cafe, the light bulb went on and everything clicked. So yeah, it's a very, very real place for me.
It's very real for me as well. Your books helped me in one of my darkest times.
Thank you.
It was the light I needed.
Thank you.
That's why I say I love you. You literally saved me in so many ways I don't even know. And I know we know each other from previous lives. I really do.
Yeah, totally. Well, and there's a lot of shared pieces of our stories. When you were describing the darkness, I know that feeling. I know what that cloud feels like when the world looks like it goes gray, is the way that I describe it. I think we talked about that you just don't see any color in the world anymore, and that's a very dangerous place to slide into, as we both know. But that's not where the story ends, not where yours ends, and not where mine's going to end either. So, yeah.
What would be like a tip for anyone who's listening to it and who feels this right now and hasn't read your books?
Well, I would say if it's not the cafe world, then find a world where things start to make sense. There's other books I've read that have been transformative for me in the way that I see the world and the way that I think about life. But yeah, I think all the time about the story of Mama Gombe in Life Safari. I don't know if you remember the part where she talks about losing her baby because she was beaten by her husband. And she explains this beautiful principle that before you're born, that you are a soul, energy, a spirit, something. And that you could enter the human story and you could do it with no challenges. And that would be like playing soccer, and it's an empty goal, and you're on a beautiful pitch, and you've got a ball, and you kick it into the goal, and you run around screaming like a nutcase because you're so happy because you scored. And after about 15 minutes of that, you'd be like, this is kind of boring.
Yes.
Right? And so how do you make it more entertaining? Well, you add a playmate, right? But then the two of you or three of you are kicking and scoring, and it's great for about 15 minutes, and then it gets boring. So how do you make it really interesting? You add the challenges, you add the defenders, you make it a competition against something. And that she describes life being that way, and that you actually pick your challenges before you're born, but you don't remember on the day that you're born. And when that came through me, and I had that awareness, I saw the darkness in a whole different way, right? I was like, oh my God, there's that thing that I picked, right? And I also learned that the first time it comes to you, it's a little, right? Just a little gentle little tap. Hey, remember that challenge you picked? Right? There it is, right? And then when we don't get it, it's a little more like,
Okay.
you know, like, yeah, 22 times.
Okay, it's coming now.
Yeah. And then I can state from my own personal experience that if I don't get it, it eventually is like a giant 2x4 across the forehead that says, hello, dude, this is what you picked, right?
Yes.
And somehow understanding that I picked it gives me the courage that I can get beyond it. And so if I was talking to someone, I hope I am talking to someone who is in that space, remember that. Like, you wouldn't have picked it if you couldn't overcome it. It's just a giant game.
Yeah. You wouldn't have picked it if you would be not able to overcome it. So we all have this, like, we choose our life, right? And we can all overcome it.
Yeah.
That helped me now. You helped me. I was the person who needed to hear that right now.
Well, and the crazy thing is maybe in some cases, because I think about things like disease, you know, like why would I ever pick that, right? And it even seems uncomfortable to say it because I have friends who are struggling with cancer right now. And in those moments, I'm like, I don't know if my theory still makes sense, but when I think of it deeply enough, it still makes sense that this isn't it. This is just a piece of the story. Like when you die, I firmly believe that you were something before you were born. You're something after you die. This is just part of the story. And maybe in some of our instances, it's actually the fight or the realizations when you're going through that are the major learnings. And then it's okay. Because I go on to whatever's next.
Yes.
I still won. I still was able to overcome it. Even if it overcame me in this physical body, I still learned in the process. And that was the whole goal. That's how I think about it, to try and deal with it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Wow. I actually don't want to ask any more questions. I feel like this is like...
We'll end it there.
This is... No, and you want to share something as well? I mean, I had like you did in our podcast, right? Like all these questions written down. And then I feel like it was the same, the conversation we had in your podcast. We just go and do, you know, where our heart takes us. And I feel like this is something, what you just said, like it helped me. And it's gonna, like, the person who's gonna watch is gonna help it as well, because right now there's so many people who are struggling in a way, especially with social media and what's going on in the world with the war and everything. So to hear that from you, it's just...
Yeah. Well, so can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, let's change that. Let's go.
Well, I would love to know, because I know your story, and we talked about it on the podcast, and it's an amazing story. It's a story of, from the context we were just talking about, someone who picked an awful lot of challenges, by the way. Kudos to you in the challenge picking.
I'm a high achiever. I'm like, give me death, give me everything.
You were like, really? There's only 17? Come on
get
now.
more.
We need a bunch more.
I need more.
Oh, those aren't hard enough. Let me give 3 more of those. And for those of you that don't know her story, like, listen to that episode and get to know her on the level that I had the pleasure of getting to know you and the challenges that you have overcome. When you look at that storyline, do you see patterns like that? When you look in the rearview mirror, can you see the tap? Can you see the more gentle tap or the more significant? And then you see the like 2x4 across the forehead.
really, okay, I need to feel on that. I haven't seen it before. I wonder if I see it now. Well, actually, no. Yesterday I actually had a moment where I was in the shower, and I had this moment where I was seeing like these little, also when we were talking about my book, and this book thing, for example, has been like universe tapping me for 2 years.
Right.
2 years, John. Keep coming back. And I was like, oh yeah, nah, never gonna do it. Another time comes back, you know, like a manager reaching out or people talking with me about it. So I was like, this was this little tap. And then literally after you left the dinner, I was talking with Miguel and Michi, and they started to talk about that his sister wants to write a book. And they were talking about the challenges. I didn't even mention that I'm writing a book. They were talking about the challenges that I have with writing my book. Like the procrastination, that I feel like all my writing, because of my dyslexia, that this is, and then Michi was just saying like, you know, you talking to me, I was just listening. It's like, yeah, you know, you just write it and you don't like, you write there and then someone in the end is gonna correct it, so you don't need to worry, just like do it. I was like, okay, universe, this I'm getting really clear now because we talked about it and then I'm just sitting there listening and they literally talk about everything that I'm scared of, and I was like, okay, this was another tap on my shoulder.
What I love most about, so I love when we have these like creative conversations because there's always a big ping. What I just learned from you was, yeah, typically it's the tap tap, big tap, 2x4. But that's not the way it happened with this idea for the amazing book you're gonna write. It may have been tap, tap, tap for a couple of years, but I would say in our conversation, it was like the blossoming light. It was actually like, I don't need the 2x4, thank you very much. And why? Why do you not need the 2x4? Because you're so open. Your channel is so open right now that when the idea came to you again in a way that felt right, you're like, yeah, I'm in.
Yes.
That's a way better way to go through the system. Like that was the big aha for me. Is like, yeah, we don't have to wait till the 2x4 hits us.
Yeah.
Embrace the open feeling. That's good. That's really good.
Really good.
And by the way, for everyone who's watching this, wait till you read this book because it's an awesome concept. I don't know if you want to talk about it yet, but
you helped me with it. I can share a little bit because also I just, when you said about like this, like my whole life was guided in a way, because now I just remember because you gave me this idea of writing down the conversations I had with my Nana. So actually, since I'm a little child, I was guided to, because also remember my Nana introduced me to reading.
Yeah.
Like my Nana was someone who always loved to read, and she gave me the love for reading, for writing. So since I'm a little child, this is actually the tap is here. Yeah. Like my whole life was like guided in this way. What is happening now that I'm seeing now? So this gave me just right now an aha moment that like my Nana was literally when it all started.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and I think that's probably the next iteration of cool thinking as it relates to this, that when you were picking like, yeah, I'll take 72 of those challenges, bring me on, right? That you're, I don't know if it's a soul cluster, I don't know if it's other souls, I don't know exactly how it works, I probably will never know until I die, but they were like, all right, you might need a little guidance or help with that one, so let me send in Oma, you know, like, somebody who's willing to enter into the pitch with you and play with you in this life experience, and you help them, they help you, and that, you were asking me before about sort of the big things. I think in both of our stories, there was moments when we had to say, I'm willing to accept the help. You know? Like, you could have easily taken the brain that you had in the challenges with the reading and been like, no, that's how I will define myself. I will live under that umbrella. Yeah. But instead, you said, I'm willing to let somebody help me.
Yes.
And think of the joy it gave your own. Right?
Yes, she was so proud. And she was so proud, so then even now it makes me smile like I'm this little Vicky, right? And I was winning the reading competitions. Yeah. Imagine, like I couldn't read, I couldn't write, I couldn't even speak, and she planted the seed within myself that I can achieve anything in the world as a woman, as a little girl. And then like, I was so proud when I was winning this reading competition and reading with her and everything. So it made her super happy, it made me happy, now it's probably gonna make other people happy. Yeah. I like my smile's going because I just feel this memory so deeply in my heart.
I can only imagine. So I'm a parent now, but it sounds like the role she played for you is very much of that loving, like a beautiful, loving presence. And I think of how proud I am for my daughter when she follows her heart and does something like that. And I can only imagine it was that to infinity on something as big as this with your grandma.
And you're a wonderful dad. You inspire me so much, like how you talk about your daughter, and I can't wait to meet her. She must be,
Amazing
incredible.
kid. She's taught me so much too. Holy cow!
Yeah.
For everybody, actually, it's in this book. The story of that Mike describes about when he is with his daughter and they're traveling in Australia. Actually, Australia. The Australian connection. And they're traveling, and his daughter has sort of like a meltdown in the middle of the night, and she's been so amazing. That was entirely based on my daughter, and she taught me so much in that moment, right? It was just, that story made its way into the book because it changed my life completely.
Yeah.
And here she was, a little 5-year-old kid, right? Change in my life, right?
Wow.
And so, yeah, I think it's very reciprocal. Very reciprocal.
And kids, they choose their parents, right? The souls, they choose the parents as well. So
I believe so.
Me
I'm
too.
quite convinced of that, yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. Which that also helps me reframe everything in terms of when someone has trauma as a child, to think that this was part of the picking of the challenges, definitely. But that could still leave me with a high degree of hatred towards another person, especially if you've been a victim, if you've been traumatized in a very significant way. And so the only thing that helps me think through my own life situations in a better way is to realize that if indeed we are all actors in the play, as Mama Gombe describes, that they were playing a particular role so that I could learn a particular thing. That dramatically reframes the way I look at that person.
Wow. Yeah.
It doesn't mean I still want to be in their energy.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I want to be within 500 kilometers of that person.
Yeah.
But it reframes it in the way that Mama Gombe describes it, is that when we die, that there is a staircase. I get emotional thinking about this one too. There is a staircase. And then when we enter the room, not only do we see all the people that were the loving presences in our lives, but we see all those people that created all that pain. And we realize that all the time that they were creating that pain for us, in their soul level, they were saying, see through me. This isn't me, this is just an actor. But I have to play this part so well, right, that you can learn in this moment, but see through me, right? And that when we die, we see them and we see how much they loved us and how much, this is like the part that brings me to tears, how much they had to sacrifice to play that role, right? Their life was shit, top to bottom, so that they could play that role so I could learn that life lesson. That reframes so much of what I experienced in my life. So, yeah. Doesn't mean I might want to be within 500 kilometers of them sometimes if there's still a person that's alive, but it does reframe so much of everything for me.
That just helped me to, well, you know my story, right?
Yeah.
From the abuse and everything, and I was just seeing my stepfather, and I love him. I really do love him too, right? Because of what, like, how my childhood was and how he was with me, it also made me to who I am today, right? That I, like, at a point that I, like, speak up and that I don't give up. I freaking don't give up.
I know, isn't that bizarre? Like, when you think about his role in your life.
Yeah.
It's just, it's interesting, it's strange. But again, this construct helps me look at the whole human experience in a different way.
Me too.
And I completely paraphrase that by saying there are certain people I do not want within 500 kilometers of me.
No.
But that said, right, I look at it differently now.
Yes. I mean, you can step away as well. I mean, as a child, it's really hard to do it. And I feel like this actually helps, especially children who grew up in an environment that is not safe.
And it doesn't justify their behavior either.
No,
I'm not suggesting that at all.
Not at all.
It's just a way of me to sort of understand it so that I can not be under the dark cloud.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
This would have helped me many years ago. Many years to hear that, so I hope someone hears that, like someone young who goes through this.
You and me both. And I think one of the reasons that I like that thought process or that view of the world is that if you, me, we can share that kind of perspective earlier, that maybe when I'm the child and I'm going through it, that I can actually have the confidence to stop something before it happens. Like I can see the role that they're playing, I can understand it in the construct, and I can say, I don't need that actually.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I've got that life lesson figured out.
Yeah.
And so maybe, hopefully, that this conversation or that perspective can help give a kid the confidence that they don't actually have to have that be part of their story. They can stop it ahead of time.
Yeah.
I think it's okay, that cut. That scene's over. I got it.
Yeah, that's what I did with my Nana, because I'm very grateful that I had my Nana. So when I had like these moments at home, right, I called her, or I don't know if we talked about it. So my first suicidal attempt was when I was 10 years old. And we talked about it, and then I was like, there was a moment, I don't know even what this moment was, but where I was like, okay, no, like just call Nana now.
Yeah.
Not even like, I don't even know what it was, but I was just like, okay, you need to call her now. And I called her and I cried, and she was just like so warming and so loving that I realized, okay, I want to be with this woman forever. I love her so much, you know. So yeah.
And to think about that, you bring that energy into the relationships that matter to you. You know, should you decide to be a parent someday, you'll bring it into that relationship.
Yeah.
And again, that's the bizarre, like crazy aspect of this life story, that if I don't know the pain, that I grew up in a house where there was a lot of yelling, right?
Same.
I made the decision on the day my daughter was born, I would never, ever, ever raise my voice to that kid. Never, right? She's 16 years old. I have never raised my voice to that kid.
Wow.
And what it does, it has forced me to look at situations that were identical to something that happened in my life growing up that would have been a yelling moment.
Yeah.
And to ask myself, wait, what is really going on in this moment?
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories. She was 3 years old. I'd had a really tough day. I was working on a bunch of stuff, and I hate it when I do my part on a project and someone doesn't do their part. You know?
Yeah.
And so I was working on some contract or something. Someone promised me all this stuff. They didn't deliver. It was like 3 or 4 things in a single day. And I had a lot in my head that was making me frustrated, right?
Yeah.
So now it's bedtime. Time to brush teeth, right? And my daughter is only 3. And she's so little that she has to like step on a step tool. Remember that when you were really little to brush your
so
teeth?
Cute. Well, I was really tall, so
Okay,
I didn't
well,
know.
maybe, yeah.
I was really tall. I didn't need that. No.
But and so instead of just standing on the step stool and brushing her teeth, she's jumping up and down off of it and she's singing.
Aww.
Yeah, exactly. That's the natural reaction in a moment like that. But I had had such a tough day, and I'm like, I got to get her to bed because I got to go back to this contract.
Yeah.
And inside of me is this voice that is like, right? And it's saying, just yell at her. Just yell at her, and she'll stand on top of it, and she'll brush her teeth. But I had made the decision on the day she was born, I would not be that guy.
Yes.
And it forced me to have a filter between my unconscious brain, right, the base brain, and the me who I want to be. And that tiny little filter enabled me to stop in that moment and say, wait, what is really going on here? And in that second, I realized this moment has nothing to do with her.
Yeah.
Like, this is actually cute. This is an awe moment, right?
Yeah.
If I yell at her, all I'm doing is oh, you asked about big lessons. Here it comes. This is one of the biggest lessons ever. All I'm doing is demonstrating transference. I'm taking all the frustrations, all the negative things that happened in some other part of my life, and I am transferring it to a person who loves me so much that they will forgive me when I do that. But here's the realization. Yes, that little 3-year-old would forgive me if I do that. But do I really need to ask her to be the bigger person in that moment? No! I can be the bigger person in that moment. I can put that little filter between my base brain actions and my mouth, and I can realize that the moment has nothing to do with her. She's being cute, right? But that comes from deciding for ourselves, who am I? And when I decided on that day I was a father who did not yell, I had set the baseline for who I was. And so that has been one of the greatest things I've ever done, is to chart my course.
Wow.
And then it forces me to say, is this thing I'm going to do in alignment with that or not in alignment with that?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what I learned from a 3-year-old child.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, you just helped me. Who am I? I want to make this decision for me as well. Like we talked about it, like my speaking, right? Like, yes, I am that person who's going to share her story because she's going to impact other women.
Yeah.
So this who am I question, like really, and then putting your focus on it, right? And then in a moment when you're really stressed, not letting it out on your daughter. Also, if you would have like screamed at her, we all get like formed by our childhood, right?
Totally.
Imagine it's like this could like trigger in her then that, oh, when I'm happy I get yelled at, so I don't allow myself to be happy.
Totally.
I don't deserve happiness, right? So kudos to you that you did not do that, so now she can blossom and can be just happy, you know?
I know, and here's the weird thing though, like where does that come from? It comes from the fact that I grew up in a household where there was a lot of yelling.
Oh, yes.
This ties back to the whole story. So that means that my dad, who was a very loving guy but demonstrated it in different ways, in the soul world, made the contract that he would come down and he would be that guy.
Yeah, wow.
Getting really teary-eyed thinking of this. He would be that guy so that I get to be this guy. Like that is the ultimate sacrifice, right? He didn't get to be this version of a father so that I could get to be that version of a father. Like, whew. Talk about love, right? Yeah. So it helps me reframe all of these connections that exist in our lives. And it helps me try to be the better version, the best version that I have within me.
Well, you just made me feel about my parents actually in a different way, because I told you, right, I grew up with my grandparents, and I always had like my parents as like, I always saw them as like these evil people who just like hurting me, and now I forgave them. But you saying this now, that they, like, everyone plays a certain role in our life and that they had to sacrifice it. I mean, my stepfather, he was an alcoholic. He was obviously not happy.
Yeah.
And he died very young as well. So he was like 40 when he died, right?
Yeah.
So his soul, as you said, must have sacrificed a lot, because I also felt the love. I also felt the love that he had for me, not just like, there was also love.
Yeah.
And I actually now want to go to his graveyard and talk to him and just have like this conversation.
That'd be really something special, wouldn't it? Yeah. And to not take on any guilt with that, right? That was the agreement. And probably in multiple lifetimes, you've done the same for his soul.
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, this is the perfect ending.
We end it right
I love you so much. I love you. You're so wonderful.
As are you, my friend. As are you.
We're gonna be forever connected. We're already like. I come to Florida. We're gonna go snorkeling.
There you go. Yeah, do it. Do it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
You're gonna. Thank you.
That was so much fun.
Wow.
Covered a lot of really good territory, and we didn't even know we were gonna cover it.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why I didn't prepare so much. I was like, okay, I want to go with my heart. And the conversations we had so far, they were all like here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't prepare it like here, right? It comes where it's like here.
I never like to pre-think, like, oh, what stories do I want to tell? Because we talked about stuff I never would have pre-thought would have been good stories, but it was like, it felt perfect.